Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Life on Dr. T TV. I'm Dr. T, and this is the place where emotionally sensitive people get to have a voice and also get the emotional tools they need to succeed. With me today is Natasha Miller, and I'm going to go ahead and read her amazing bio and allow you to get to know her a little bit before we dive in. So, Natasha Miller. A musician by nature, Natasha's start in the events industry happened by accident. As a celebrated violinist and jazz vocalist, Natasha released 7 records on her own label. It wasn't long before word of her talent spread far and wide, and she often found her gig schedule fully booked. Eager to please, she was happy to refer other musicians in her place. This thoughtful gesture gradually evolved into Entire Productions, a leading experience design and entertainment booking company based in San Francisco, with a satellite office in Los Angeles as well. Her experience in media buying and advertising has helped Entire Productions thrive in every market that it has ever entered. Natasha's commitment to growing Entire Productions has earned her recognition from Inc. magazine as one of the 5,000 fastest growing companies in America, as well as Entrepreneur magazine's 360 list of the best entrepreneurial companies in America as well. She is a prolific philanthropist, having founded a scholarship fund for musicians, sitting on the boards of the Symphonics Advisory Board and International Live Events Association, and contributing time and resources to numerous charities. She continues to share her expertise through speaking engagements, including Dreamforce, the Digital Hollywood Experience, Smart Meetings, and She Work. She has also earned press features in top publications like Inc. magazine, Thrive, and Global, and San Francisco Business Times, Authority magazine, and the Wedding Biz podcast. Welcome, Natasha. It's great to have you on the show.
Wow, I would like to wake up every morning having someone or you read that out. Wow, thank you. Good morning.
You're so welcome. I am so happy to have you with us because, here on the show, the priority really is helping emotionally sensitive people who are also really highly driven and really purposeful and want to make a contribution to really help them have the emotional tools to succeed. And it's really important for all of us to learn about people like you, who are obviously a creative artist and also a really successful entrepreneur, and how you've made that all work and what the journey's been like, so that everyone who has these beautiful gifts to give can give them to the world, and so we can all receive them, and everything can be so much better for all these amazing artists out there. So let's start by talking a little bit about your journey from being an artist to an entrepreneur and how that all works on your end.
Yeah, so whoever edited that bio is pretty wonderful. So whoever that was, if it's you or someone that works with you, that was amazing. You just got all the juicy bits. Yeah. So one of the things, when I was 15, I started playing professionally in high school, just on a little gig for the inauguration of our governor. And then in high school and college, I definitely had an entrepreneurial mindset. We didn't call it that then. I don't know what we called it. I think savvy, or people are like, oh, she's really going for it. But I didn't hear the word entrepreneur for years and years later. But when I was getting double, triple, quadruple booked, it wasn't necessarily that I was so kind and I gave the gigs to other people. The key is that I said to my clients, I'm busy, I can't perform, but I can bring in another group that's as good as I am or better. And so I was actually seeing an upside because I was managing it and making a commission from that. So I'm not as sweet as the bio said, but
But you're savvy.
I'm savvy, and it's good for people to know that, is that you can certainly be giving, but you can also give and receive at the same time. And it's totally fine.
Super important. And I love the win-win factor here all the way around,
Yeah.
you know, multiple people being served in the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't willing to turn down gigs. I wasn't willing to turn down money. One of the things that's not in my bio, but will be at some point, is that I've been on my own since I was 16. And so that inner fight that I have is probably the mechanism that made me an entrepreneur rather than it being just natural. So that's maybe one thing to think about. People say, you know, how did you become an entrepreneur? And I'm like, I think if I had to really look back, it was a survival tactic.
Sure.
Other people do other things. I just went crazy trying to succeed. So.
And create, you know, the point was to create outcomes, and that's, you know, that ends up being called entrepreneurship at some point. Yeah. Well, thank you for really helping us understand that, because it's a complex experience for so many people, and it can all seem very much more you know, glossy than it might be, right? It's much more gritty.
Absolutely.
Right? It's more gritty than that.
Yep. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of gumption, and you just have to get out of your own way, especially if you are, you know, a sensitive, artistic person. I am a pretty severe introvert. I never understood that. I'm very outgoing. I'm very confident, and I'm pretty social when there's a cause for it, right? But about 75% of the time I'm alone, and I want it that way.
Sure.
So being introverted and then maybe being shy and then maybe being proud of your work can lead to not sharing your gift, you know, to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for really illuminating that for everyone as well, because there's so much confusion, right, about being a person, and so many things that I just always recognize, like, you know, I just recognize, like, humans are able to create life, but we're not necessarily given the handbook for being a person. And all, you know, even if we can't know every single detail, that we would know the major applications for everything, and how to really maneuver and navigate. And it's such a, you know, on the job training, so to speak, which comes through so much difficulty and complexity and confusion, while there's this, you know, beautifully profound person who can feel very deeply, and you know, is kind of looking around going, how does this work for somebody like me in particular? And I'm sure you know, resonate with the fact that emotionally sensitive people tend to be labeled as something, you know, this sensitivity piece and all of that is somehow this negative thing in a world that really is requiring us to be pretty functional and strong, you know?
I mean, that sensitivity is what ultimately led me to music and created 7 albums. And, you know, I would sit at the piano or the guitar or the violin and just pour my emotions out, work them out. That's what I was doing. It was solo therapy. And it was a beautiful thing. And I think that the idea of the handbook of when you become a human, you know, although it sounds wonderful and helpful, all of that trial and error and pain and such shapes you and molds you and sculpts you into this person that can't be anything like anyone else. So embrace the journey.
Yeah. You know, Tasha, you're really connecting with something that I tend to kind of forget about in my life as a sensitive person who recognized it from the very beginning. Like, you know, I could feel a lot of stuff and notice a lot, and just kind of, I was sort of assessing it scientifically, not quite sure what was going on. And I was really naturally inclined for music, and the clarinet was my instrument through grammar school and then into junior high. And I was first clarinet, by the way, and I absolutely loved it, even though, as you talk about entrepreneurialism, I don't think I ever really thought of myself as a musician or an artist, but here I was for I don't know, what might have been maybe a 5-year chunk of my young life. And it was a really important aspect of me. And when I shifted into high school, this was literally what my dad said was, they don't, he wanted me to be an athlete, which I also was. He said, they don't put your name in the paper if you're in the band. And, it's that kind of thing that shapes life. And something in me must have thought I should be in the paper. And so I pursued athletics at a much higher level and ended up dropping that. And I really get, years later as a ballroom dancer, I get how critical it is to be expressing the full self in the way that people do, like you were doing as a young person as well.
I think it's incredibly important. And I have a 24-year-old daughter who's a very sensitive, beautiful artist, introvert, although she, as well as me, is very outgoing when we are with our people. So people get confused about that term. And she, she graduated from college in 3 years instead of 4 from SMU on accident, by the way, which is weird. But what I'm leading into is that she had so much pressure to do what she thought society, her school, her friends were telling her to do, and she had no interest in it. And so that makes you feel horrible, right? It makes you feel like a complete failure before you even get started.
Yeah, being you is wrong, right? Being you is sort of a misfit situation.
Yeah. I've been drilling into her that you don't have to have that kind of life. But I want to say, honestly, I thought, well, but you still have to work. You still have to work 40 hours somewhere, even if you don't like it. It's not actually true. She doesn't have to do that. So I changed my tune a few years ago, and I'm really embracing her. And now she's designing clothing, masks, sewing, cooking, gardening. She's flourishing. And some of this is going to lead into a career. I mean, she's already kind of decided that. But God, if she had just thought, oh my God, I have to do this or I have to do that, then her poor little heart and soul would have just been trampled, and she would have become a completely different person.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I mean, that's just, I think, a really important thing. And for me, because I was on my own, I didn't have anyone saying, you must, you have to, you should. I followed my own path, and it led to business and entrepreneurship and all the success. But it doesn't have to equal, a profitable multi-million-dollar company. That's what I have. That's what I had before COVID.
Got it.
It can be less than that and still incredibly successful.
Well, it's interesting. This morning, as I was just connecting and thinking about this interview, and my just beautiful intuition just overflows with what I'm going to get to experience. It was that kind of thought about the whole trajectory in the entire fabric of society about artists, and the whole thing about that somebody is literally who they are. And then I was having this moment of picturing somebody saying, like, Mom, I want to be an artist. And I thought about how weird that was, because essentially the person is an artist, right? Or they wouldn't be saying, I want to be an artist. And that's kind of different in a lot of ways than, like, if you're going to be a fireman, you might not as a kid already be a fireman, right? Before you say I want to be a fireman or something. But as an artist, there's something that's just, what's really being said is, this is who I am. I am a creator, and that whole, everybody's aware, right, of this concept of where it's like, if you're an artist, there's a belief system that is automatically that the person will struggle and that they won't make money. And how insidious that belief system is still in the fabric of our society. And to your point, it's like saying to someone, don't be you, which to me, I have seen in so many people cause some of the most tremendous mental illness experiences that there is,
Yeah. And imagine this. I mean, if I'm giving my daughter all of this positive reinforcement and she's still struggling, what would it be like for somebody who's not getting that positive reinforcement? And, it leads to a lot of things that, is a whole nother story, but, it could lead to really detrimental behaviors and such.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And what I'll just, say in our collaboration here is just keep inviting people that are watching with us here today, inviting people to recognize that really you're a powerful creator and you are literally creating the reality that you want and whatever you want that to be. And if it is a 40-hour a work week or whatever it is, whatever position, that ultimately it's my belief that if we were starting people sooner in their life, cultivating them as they are and who they are, to basically live a life as themselves and then maybe call that a job, right? For semantics purposes, how different, all of the pathology that develops from the self-rejection and how that would be different if we were just thinking about what do we want to create in the world and what do we want to contribute and how do we be of service to that, because there's a market for every one of us to contribute to and to receive, and it's a whole different paradigm.
I agree. Yeah.
So as you were in your journey as a young musician, a young artist, and where you had that savvy, right? And you recognized really, you were receiving something and you wanted to receive it and keep evolving it into something that was serving other people. Where did that then take you in terms of how does those dots connect to like where you ended up having this incredible company, the entire productions company, correct?
So the dots were connected when I started becoming educated. Now, that sounds a little highfalutin, but it really, I was doing it on my own. I was so proud that I was forging my own path, but I was like, if the path is straight, I was like a little over here and then a little over there, and then I'd get on the path and I'd go off on my own way. And I was like, yeah, I'm really amazing. Well, the fact is I was amazing, but I was wasting so much time. Now I was learning and it was still a journey, but about 5 years ago, I attended a program Goldman Sachs funded called the 10K SB. And this was at Babson College in Boston, which is a big entrepreneurial college. It was a 12-week program. Mind blown. And as soon as I sat down and started learning with these people of all different kinds of businesses, and the bar to get in was that you had to have $250,000 in revenue and like 3 or 4 employees. So I cleared that bar. And I think my revenue at the time was over $1 million. And there were people with $30 million companies. So it was a big, there was no one in events there, no one in music. And I looked around and I'm like, what am I going to learn from construction company? What am I going to learn from, this person that's making nutrient rich food for people in hospitals? Like, come on. I have learned very quickly. I could learn a lot from them and they could learn a lot from me, even the people with a $30 million business. I had a lot to share with them. So if I'm ever asked this, I would just stress, get educated. You can do it on your own. You can forge in your own path, but also learn from other people that have done it before you. You can say, oh, I'm going to do these things, but I'm not going to do that one piece. But for God's sake, like, arm yourself with information. And so that started my trajectory of heavy duty learning. So I'm a member of Entrepreneurs Organization. And with that organization, I was able to attend a class at MIT, an entrepreneurial master's class, as well as at Harvard. And I'm telling you right now, if I didn't have those opportunities, my business would not be growing and scaling to the numbers that they are. Yeah. So that's dots connected right there.
I love that. And Natasha, that's so big for people to understand, because sometimes actually being emotionally sensitive has people feeling so overwhelmed in life that they're just sort of surviving a lot, and they're working, but they're just sort of getting through the day. And the reality is that when you do stuff like you just described, you're actually syncing up with other people and their pattern of success, right? And vice versa. And you're with people who are outcome generators, right? And who are on that path to living their potential. And that's one of the common themes that I hear about through all the consultations and people that I talk to that really identify as being more sensitive and sometimes struggling with that, is that they've gone through life just feeling this emotional burden. And so it's just things are overwhelming and they end up kind of doing whatever it is that just keeps them afloat. And is safe also, right? Just the things that feel safe, because part of being emotionally sensitive is exposing yourself to so many different things that are, even when they're awesome, can feel like a big burden.
Oh, seriously. This is one of the biggest surprises I had, was that success and attention and things that were positive sometimes can feel as stressful and hard as the difficult things. And I remember saying to my dad, what is this? And so now I have that information and I'm able to, breathe through it or just relax. But also, going into your comfort zone, let me tell you, I am successful, but I also rest on my laurels and I'm in that comfort zone a lot. But the difference between me and maybe someone else is that then I pop myself out of it. Yeah. And then I hit a target. And once I'm depleted of energy, I let myself rest. Now, do I let myself rest at the right time? Yeah. Not necessarily, but I know, I'm 49 years old. So I've had also a long time to learn these things about myself.
Yeah. Well, this is so important for everybody because it is about that continual growth trajectory, which is so important because, when I look at sort of what goes on with society and how people are willing to learn certain things, but not others, I think it's just this sort of basic premise. Like, if there's something that you want to know how to do, as simple as it sounds, it's about learning how to do it. And yet there's this sort of gap that happens where, especially in the world now where we can see everybody's everything. And it's like, well, that person can do that. And it can look so glossy and maybe they don't know about the grit that goes into it, but it looks like it's for other people, or it's so hard. And really, it's about, I think this is an important premise for all of us. If we don't know how to do something, that the way we learn how to do it is to do it. And then we do it some more and we keep doing it. It's like driving a car until we then go, I just drove my car somewhere and I don't even remember the drive.
Right, subconscious. So,
right, the changing the conscious to the subconscious. And yet I get also for emotionally sensitive people where we can feel everything. To your point, Natasha, that is really something to understand, that it means that you can feel a lot, but there's also ways that you can work with what you feel, right? So that you don't have to avoid or fear success or fear doing things that will really drive you forward in life, just because you can feel a lot, even in a really fun situation.
Yeah.
It's really,
you got to keep going.
Yeah. So, Natasha, out of those experiences where you really put yourself into, really a transformative growth process there, what are the when you said, you don't think your business would have ever gone the same way, what do you think are some of, if not the top or a couple of the top things that were just completely foundational for you from that?
I would say before I stepped foot in the Babson College program, which by the way was free, which is crazy. And that program is still going. So 10KSB, if you want to Google it. It's about a $90,000 program. For someone like me, from where I grew up, I would have never invested that much money in myself. I would now, but I've learned so much. So putting myself in that room and seeing everyday regular people with huge businesses made me think bigger. So at the time, $1 million, $2 million business was already far surpassing what I ever thought I would ever do. But when I saw other people looking at growing and scaling to 5 or 10 or 30 or 100 million, I thought, oh, I absolutely can do that. Now, do I want to? That's always the question that was like, but do you want to? Yeah. I was like, well, I want all the information to get there. And along the way, if it feels horrible and it's really going against the grain of who I am, then I'll stop. But now I'm in classes with people that are trying to scale to $1 billion in revenue. I now know that I actually could do that. I'm very capable of doing that. I don't think right now that that's somewhere that I want to go or that I am going, but it wouldn't be surprising to me at all if I did. That is a huge mindset shift.
Yeah.
I would have never, and that didn't happen immediately at Babson. It started to happen there. And as soon as I met all these other entrepreneurs, right? They're not all what you think they would be. I mean, the guy that has 1-800 got junk, he's got $1 billion company. He was almost going out of business at one point in San Francisco, and you know, probably not highly educated. I actually don't know that part about Brian, but you know what? He's not doing it by himself. He's doing it with Entrepreneurs Organization. He's doing it with being advised and mentored, and now he can afford to, you know, bring in advisory boards and such. So I just think thinking outside of your own experience is really exciting.
It makes so much sense too, because ultimately how I see it is like, we've been trained and developed by our family system, right? And by our society and whoever the guardians were, and however that you know, story went down, however that path was. And so there's been all of this training, some conscious, but a lot unconscious, right? Of people in our lives doing the best that they knew how. And what I also notice is that we're a very emotionally young society where there's all of this brilliance and still a big gap for a lot of people to know exactly how to utilize that brilliance in a way that is really productive and doesn't backfire on them. And so, you know, when I think about what people have sort of synced up with when they've grown up and what they've been conditioned for, I think, you know, it's so essential for humans at this point to keep learning and growing and creating a developmental path for them as a way of being, rather than just sort of like, when I have a problem, then I'll go solve it. Yeah. You know, which is sort of this pattern of sort of crisis management. Like, if I have a crisis and it's difficult enough, I'll then grow something about myself or grow my knowledge, right? Rather than this more of a process with oneself where you're always developing so that you have the skills to do, like you said, whether it's this million or that million, it's the skill set, right? That can allow you to do whatever you want to do.
I've become a lifelong learner. I was a lifelong learner before, but it was more do it yourself, figure it out yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But now I have an incredible thirst for learning from other people and cross-referencing, you know, what they've done to what somebody else has done to what I've done. And then that turned me into now a lifelong teacher. I'm not really a teacher. I don't offer courses or classes yet. Maybe that's
there it is.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. If I want to do it, I know I can do it, period. End of story.
Yeah. And so this is so key, Natasha, right? That so the feeling that we want everybody to be able to have is that they can do whatever it is that they decide to do. And that's why I love development and things like emotional training and really growing a relationship with yourself, because then it's just application, right? It's application of a higher capacity, of a higher ability to think and use the resources of your own self, which is a real game changer when you have a sense that you know you could do something, and then you really are just deciding what it is, rather than having maybe some of your emotional limitations or just where you haven't developed as a person yet, having that decide everything for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, gosh, I was just looking back in my mind to when I was in my 20s and how far I've come from then to now.
Yeah. So for people who are, you know, they're at points where maybe they've started a business. So a lot of emotionally sensitive people, because they want to make such amazing contributions to society, and they have all of these beautiful gifts to give, and maybe they've started a business or they're getting going, or they're in a difficult time in getting their business to a certain level. What are the kinds of things that you, as a, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a colleague, what are the kinds of things that you encourage people to do that especially have this kind of constitution that we're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think identifying your top 5 or 10 strengths, whether you do it on your own or with a Gallup Strengths Finder or something like that, and really honing in on doing those things that you're good at and those things that you like, and then finding someone else or somebody else's to help you fill in the gaps with the things that you're not good at and the things that you don't love. I'm doing that. I've become a super delegator. So, if somebody's out there saying, well, I can't afford that, well, you have friends and you have family, and there are resources out there that you just need to dig around to find. The SBA and SCORE, I think is what it's called, have resources. But being able to, like for me, before I hit Babson, if you were going to have a conversation with me about my P&L, my balance sheet, net profit, net income, growth, I would have faked it. I didn't really know my numbers. I knew instinctively and I knew from my gut what was coming in and what was going out. But after learning, and believe me, that scared the crap out of me. I had a teacher, Mike Fetters, that I thought, I was like, oh my God, don't call on me. I'm a grown adult. And I'm going, oh, don't call on me. But I learned from him. He taught us like we were going to be a CPA, although we're not ever going to become that. And now I can have a pretty good and confident, like I feel confident conversation with somebody about my books. And I can ask questions and I can get in there, and that's pretty amazing. But I now have an accountant, a controller, and a CFO. Right? Because I don't know it like they do. So that's one of the things, is definitely find somebody to balance out your skill set.
Yeah, this is really big, because having hired people in the past, but then not knowing enough about the thing that I'm hiring them for, the reality is there's a certain amount of it that is just essential for us to know, to have true ownership over the outcomes that we're creating. But I also love that there's just so many amazing people in the whole economy. I think of it as like a spiritual economy, and the way that we're so interdependent with each other. And also being able to create those awesome relationships and have those be emotionally successful as much as financially successful, or how one hinges on the other. So Natasha, having made, really hit a pinnacle of success that a lot of people really feel is such a, it really sounds so, it's far away for them, right? It can sound far away from them. What has that been like for you to experience these things that you set out to create? And what's it been like, and how is it different than you might have thought it was, that you thought it was going to be?
I haven't changed fundamentally as a person. So that was interesting. And even today, if something big happens, or like a big sale happens, or we acquire a huge, exciting client, or if I'm featured in some sort of a news, I still, to this day, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe ink is writing about me. And I would say out loud to my daughter, who I just have to tell you, I'll be like, I'm still the little girl from 29th Street inside. And like, I can't believe this is happening. And she's like, yeah, Mom, you're the little girl from, like, when are you going to realize that you're successful? I'm like, never, right? That's kind of the beauty of it, is that I'm still fundamentally that little girl scratching away at life inside. And I don't want to lose that either. So if someday, someone of some note, as far as I'm concerned, reaches out to me and wants to connect with me, if I don't feel that sizzle and that excitement, oh, that's not a good day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If I get an email from somebody and they've said something, I have a question about my book or something, I'm just in awe, because there was just an intention to help people. And I think, oh my gosh, I can't wait to write back and answer this question. And that to me really expresses the reality of living in a purpose rather than like in a position or a job or a role, which is all encompassing and all of that. But I feel like when you're really living close to your purpose or inside your purpose, as I like to say, it is wonderment that's happening all the time, right? The wonderment and how you intend to create something, and then all of a sudden there it is, and you're kind of expressing, Natasha, this sense of like, you may not be like surprised, but it's delightful, right? Like it's a really delightful.
Sometimes I'm surprised.
Sometimes you're surprised.
Yeah,
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So share with us more about what your company does and what people should know about it. Yeah.
So we started out really focusing on entertainment. So entertainment for weddings and social and corporate events. And that blossomed and grew to not just jazz and classical, which is what my expertise was, but to blues and DJs and headliners. And then now we have aerialists and cigar bars and like just everything, anything that is entertainment centered. That's what we provide. And now mostly to high-end corporate events like Facebook and Apple and et cetera. Then we started producing the event. So before we were a supplier to other planners for their events. Now entire productions really is the entire thing. You can hire us just to bring in entertainment, or you can hire us to plan and design and execute your whole event. Because of COVID, we've now become experts in virtual entertainment and virtual events. As well, because of this downtime, I was able to focus on and start another division, which is a marketing division. So we're offering to our clients mostly, right? So we're not really trying to cast a wide net, but to our clients, which is a pretty big net, to purchase the premium branded products from us rather than going outside for their events and for their teams. So that's really exciting. That's the virtual and the marketing has been our pivot, which I prefer to call pirouette during the time of COVID.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is about, you're just creating these amazing human experiences, right? And so it evolved. So how did it evolve from the supply into, ultimately taking responsibility for these kinds of human experiences and what they're meant to do for people?
Yeah. So our business is 20 years old, and I will tell you that in the middle of it, when really our core business was sending out entertainment to other planners, I was not going to take a planning event from a client if they asked, because I didn't want to alienate myself from our bread and butter, our clients that were the producers. I didn't want someone saying, hey, you're planning events now, you're my competition, I'm not going to book music from you. But it didn't end up that way. So little by little, we would take like little events. And then about 4 years ago, one of my advisors said, you know what, I think you need to diversify your business. I don't like this, that you've got all your eggs in one basket. I want you to start, planning these events. I'm like, oh, I can't. Like, I'll lose my business completely. Well, he actually happens to be the CEO of a very large company. And he basically strong-armed us into planning a very large event for him, 6,000 people in 2 outdoor locations. It was a launch of a big product. And so that was 4 years ago. And I told my team, who was so excited about doing this, okay, we can plan one full production event a quarter, because I didn't want to, of course, get in the weeds with our clients, but now it's just snowballed. And we're getting a lot of inquiries and to do the full production. But our clients aren't they haven't stopped using us for entertainment, because pre-COVID, there was enough work to go around. Oh. And I think that I put out a very positive energy in our industry, and I'm not going out and trying to poach clients from our clients. So it's been totally acceptable.
Wow.
I'm lucky.
Wow. So what an incredible ability for creative fulfillment, right? Like, because it's different every time. And
it is. And people ask me, oh, do you miss performing? Because I haven't performed in 4 years. I haven't released a record. And the answer is not at all, which really disappoints people. I think they feel like, oh, she's lost that, that soulful energy, but I haven't. I've just transferred it to another place. And honestly, emoting and pouring my soul out on stage and just like squeezing the sponge all the way dry was emotionally difficult for me.
Right.
And now I get to feel the good part of performing without like the performance hangover, because it's personal, but it's not that personal, all these events that we're doing. And now I perform or play and write for fun. And maybe I'll go out and produce another record or do another show. I don't know. I can do it if I want. It's always there for me.
I could do it if I want. And this is what I think is so cool too about really helping people understand that when they're going forth in something that is really intuitive to them and feels really true and feels really purposeful and all of that, sometimes I think what happens is it's like they feel like they're making a lifelong decision. Like if I go this direction and then that's everything and I'm shutting the door on this or that, or it's got to be this because it versus like really just understanding when you keep developing the tools of how to just kind of apply yourself to things and to be yourself in those things, it just gets to beautifully evolve. And if you're in the art, if you're an art, you're going to be artistic in all of these things that you're doing. And it's really an open field of possibilities in all reality.
Agreed. And I have to piggyback on what you're saying is that I only thought I would be a performing artist. It's what I thought I wanted. It was what I thought I only wanted. And what I am realizing now is that all had its own space and time. And it was really teaching me and readying me for this next phase, which was entire production. But guess what? Entire production and that entire experience is also a platform and getting me ready for the next venture. And that's really exciting to realize that you don't have to stay in one seat your entire life. You can if you want, but if you don't want to, just use it as education for the next activity.
I can remember when I first came to what I would call like the biggest level of consciousness I ever felt in my life. And I was probably like 32 years old. And I just had this sense of exactly who I was and what I was supposed to be doing in the world. And then I could just kind of start to see the map out all the way to like 95 plus years old. I thought, it's got this chapter and this chapter, and I don't know what order they go in, but I just know the next one. And that was so relaxing to me to just know that this would be the me that I am, and it would just evolve. I would evolve, and that I was never going to be bored because I would just keep learning and growing, and that thing would lead me to the next thing. And this is really important for everybody to do, because sometimes people feel like they need to figure out the whole entire thing, and what's right in front of you is what you're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about also, Natasha, is then like stabilizing into it also, so it can then be such a solid foundation for what it is that you're evolving to next.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything, no matter what it is you're doing, is educating you for the next thing. So whether you're working at a fast food restaurant, or for me, at one point, I've worked as a waitress a million places, great customer service and learning how to relate to people. Then I worked in media buying and advertising. Well, how amazing is that? Because now I'm able to know how to market my company and myself. So everything you can parlay into, it's like the Grand Rapids of your life.
It is. As a person that did, training in the corporate world and training and developing managers and all of this, it all just feels like a really amazing path. And I really invite everybody to kind of recognize and see how your path is actually working, right? How it's actually where you might feel sometimes that it's off track or it's something other than it seems. If you really kind of connect the dots from where you've been and where you are, it'll really show you where you're going. And how, even though we might swerve here or there, how I feel like to a great degree, people are much more on track than they realize and give themselves credit for.
Yeah, sometimes you're not aware that you are actually rowing in the right direction.
Yes, exactly. Natasha, so just so we know, what do you want all of us to know about what your company can offer to everybody? Because it's with your new division and our new world that we're living in, what do you want everybody to know about all of
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think right now the main things that we're focusing on, because we won't go back to in-person events in the Bay Area, at least for a long time, spring of next year or until there's a vaccine or who knows,
Yeah.
is that we are really great at producing really good virtual events. And if they don't have to be huge, high-end, $20,000 to $100,000 productions, we'll tell you. And we'll do it, at a budget that is in alignment with what people are actually wanting to do. And then with the promo items, we're really excited about that, but we really want to offer it to people that need it and want it. Like, for instance, we just did an order for 4,500 branded masks to get people to go back to work, and then 4,500 branded neck gaiters. So we're actually, doing something positive and, keeping these employees safe, but also showing them, the brand recognition. But one of the things that I'm working on that's really exciting for me that has, it doesn't have nothing to do with entire production. I have finished the draft of my business memoir. So I think that for me and your audience is the most important thing that I would love for them to know, is that this book will be coming out at some point. I have a big fancy agent, but if we don't get a publishing deal that I feel is worthy of the work, I'll self-publish. Nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, it's probably better for me for what I want to do with it. But I can't wait for people to read and be inspired and see the potential that they have in themselves. If you knew my story, and you know it, and this audience knows it from 16, on, what you don't know is from, birth to 16. And that really did shape who I am. And some people look at me and they think, oh, she's so rich, she's so fancy. Okay, that's funny, because I really am not at all in regular every day. But I remember someone that was working at my apartment at the front desk, and she looked at me as those things. And what she didn't realize was that I had been homeless before. And she was asking me for, she was saying, oh, I'm a front desk person, but I kind of really want to work at a hospital with kids as a nurse. And I'm like, let me help you with your resume. Let me help you with your training. And she kind of was like, why are you helping me? I'm like, you don't understand. You're me.
Yeah.
I'm you. You think that I have this life, and I do have some of the material things now, but deep down inside, sorry, you're wrong. And I can help you. You can get to where you need to be.
Wow, this is amazing, Natasha. I can't wait to read it. What do we know? Do you have a working title?
That is the most horrific part of the entire
Sorry.
No, I can't. I'm just like, it's so personal. It's so important to me. I have like a list of 20 different titles. I want it to be cute and fun, but really the book isn't cute or fun. So
it's just,
I'm sure the publisher will pin me down and say, look, we actually need to name this book something. So pick one and let's go.
Where do you want people to be able to contact you and see all the things that you're doing and connect with you for the different services and the book eventually?
Yeah, so our company website is simple, entireproductions.com. I have a website. It's natashamiller.co. And that shows everything, my music, my entrepreneurship journey. It will have information about the book. It has some information about my consulting and my speaking. So that's kind of like the Natasha Miller world.
Okay, and Natasha, last question for today, which I like to ask on the show, which is all about your contribution in the world. And what I want to know, what I want all of us to be able to know is, without being too morbid, if this was the last moment that you were able to sort of give the world your message and your contribution, and that thing that for the rest of their lives they would know, and they may even say, you know, Natasha taught me that. What, you know, when you think about that, what comes to mind as that message for everybody?
Yeah. So what comes to mind is something that if you look on my Facebook page, and if anyone knows me, they can tell you, unfortunately, it's Nike's, you know, just do it. And just do it, even if you have imposter syndrome. Just do it, even if you think you're not worthy. Just do it, even if you think you're not quite there yet. Be the person that you want to be. When I was starting to write songs, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. I wanted people to address me as that. And I read in a magazine, you know, don't say I want to be, like we were talking about. You are a singer-songwriter. And I thought I needed to have performed or had some sort of accolades. And the moment I read that, I'm like, I am a singer-songwriter. And when somebody asked me, that's what I said. So you can hurdle over your own setbacks, but just do it.
I love it. All right, everyone, you've heard it from Natasha and I, and we just invite you into your next level life and let nothing hold you back. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.